Hello and welcome to the video. This is an overview and review of this little thing here. This is one of the latest quads from HGLRC. This is called the Sector25CR Cinequad. Now this is definitely sub 250 grams even with a little battery. So if that's important to you, then this might be something that's right up your street. Now I have looked at quite a few other HGLRC quads on the channel. I'll put a couple of links down below and they always seem to come out with some really nice stuff. Now the two versions of the particular thing available with the DJI system and the analog system, and I've got the analog system in here. So standard stuff, we'll take it out the box, go through some of the specs and stick it into Beat Flight, see what they did, and then talk about what it's like to fly. So while I unbox this, let's go through some of the specs. So this is the Sector25CR. It's a lightweight frame, so it has a wheelbase of 132 millimeters and a 2.5-inch freestyle style frame. Weight of the frame is about 34.5 grams. Inside here is an F7 based flight controller, which will support 3 to 6S, but really needs to be run on 4S. VTX in this analog version is the Zeus Nano 350 milliwatt VTX. I've used this in a couple of places now, including in the recent ZOHD Talon 250G launch, and it's one that I quite like. It seems to work quite nice. At the front is the Cadix Rattle 2 FPV camera. That's 1200 TVL lines, standard 19x19 dimensions. The motors on this are 1404 3600 kV brushless motors, which will support both 3 and 4S. And the props supplied are Gemfan D63 2.5-inch 5-bladed propellers, and there is also an additional set in the box, as well as some other nice bits and pieces. A couple of things that you'll immediately spot about this: of course it has the 360-degree protection guards around the props, and it also has a power upgrade. These are newer motors on this that give an awful lot more punch. There is mounting at the front for a GoPro style camera. Something like a naked GoPro or one of the Insta360s would be perfect to spot at the front. So let's plug it into Beat Flight and see how it works. Now the good news is it's very easy to get to the USB cable, even though it's kind of hidden away. You can actually get under the prop guards to plug it in. So now it's connected. Let's click on connect and have a look. Things in the data flash will enable expert mode. I do like to see stuff in the data flash. It doesn't mean it has been armed before it left the factory. Ports look like this. The only thing that's really set up is the IRC tramp stuff on UART3 to control the VTX. Motor direction is reversed, be aware of that for the props. D-Shock 600, 8K gyro and PID loop frequencies, just ticking over with the F7 base processor. Not an awful lot turned on, including the D-Shock beacon configuration. This doesn't have a beeper, and I think that's a bit of an oversight. This thing will disappear if it lands in anything but freshly mown grass. Failsafe set to drop. PID tuning is available via the dump and diff files. I'll put links down below if you want to see how they've set it up. The tune is quite nice. It's a very gentle, fun flyer, as you'd expect from a Cinequad. Not an awful lot set up in the modes tab, so you're definitely going to have to plug it in and come in here to change a few things if you want anything more than angle and air mode. And the last thing I would do is come in here and change the on-screen display around. After recording this, I moved a couple of things, as you'll see in a minute, for some flying footage. So the flying footage, let's talk about that. This is taken on a particularly overcast day. There's quite a bit of breeze, but this little quadcopter doesn't care about it at all. Unfortunately, no RSSI channel on the supplied FR Sky compatible receiver, and it is the international version of the firmware on that receiver as supplied. So the thing I'll draw your attention to is the amount of throttle that I'm using on the right hand side. This is a very powerful little quadcopter considering its size. Now it's pulling about 20 amps to do it, but I am having to use no more than a quarter throttle to zoom around here. Now I'm flying in this particular configuration without any kind of action camera installed, so it's pretty lightweight. But it is flying around beautifully, and I can absolutely see how with a GoPro on this would be a really fun, epic way to fly around, particularly because those props are enclosed, and it means that you can get into places with this that you couldn't with larger quadcopters. easily got enough horsepower here to carry some pretty heavy action cameras if you can fit them on the top along with the battery. Now in terms of the flying, I'm getting about 4.5 minutes out of my 650 milliamp hour 4S pack, and the only thing that I'll kind of draw your attention to is the camera performance on here. There is quite a little bit of interference depending on how I'm flying. That very short stubby antenna in certain orientations is a little bit occluded and a little bit tricky to get a clear signal from, but for hooting around in smaller places it's fantastic. The other thing that you can't hear on this is how quiet it is. It's absolutely brilliant. Rather than being a big booming high whining quad that sounds like an angry nest of hornets, this is pretty quiet, so you could get away with flying it in places that maybe you wouldn't with some noisier models. So in summary, this is another really nice model for those of you that are looking for a really small, lightweight, but very capable, powerful model in this smaller package. Great set of hardware in here, including these improved motors, F7 flight controller. The build quality and the soldering, as you'd expect from these guys, is absolutely fantastic. So in terms of making sure that nothing's going to fall off, it should be fine. Mounts for action cameras already installed at the front, and with the amount of power this thing has, it'll easily carry them. Just keep an eye on that voltage and how much current's been pulled, because you can't get really big batteries on here as well as a action camera. This is great for hooting around outdoors, but is very fun if you have lots of room indoors as well. With those props being enclosed, it means that it can bounce off stuff, but you're definitely going to have to calm the throttle if you're going to fly indoors, because with the power this thing has, it'll have crashed, bounced off one wall, bounced off the opposite wall, and bounced off the dog before you even know what's happened. Camera performance is okay, but as you saw, there is a little bit of interference in the image. It isn't as clean as I would like. Maybe there needs to be a little bit of thought about adding extra cap or smoothing for the video transmission. The tune is nice and it's very smooth. Just what you need on something like a Cinequad, but maybe those of you that like to flip and roll, this might not be exactly tuned to how you're going to like it. Only a couple of things to draw your attention to. Of course, there is a single bottom plate for the arms and everything else, that because of its lightweight, there isn't as much mass involved in the crashes, so you're going to have to work pretty hard to break it, but if you do, it's going to be quite an involved job to swap everything over. Again, no RSSI on the FreeSky receiver, a bit of a shame that, and also no beeper, so very good luck finding it when it lands in the long grass. I did have the odd failsafe when I was flying it indoors as a check, but I hadn't had any issues flying further than about 6 feet away, so just be aware of that. It's pretty standard to have problems with reception when you're too close to the radio, and that's what I was having indoors. So this is a deceptively capable little model that can do far more than I expected. It's a great, quiet, fun model that feels a lot larger when zooming about, and if you want something that you can fly in places that isn't going to draw lots of attention and allow you to explore and have fun, as long as you don't mind only doing it for 4 or 5 minutes at a time, this is worth a look. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organised into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.